Hey there, how's it going? Hey, it's taken me a long time to get here, and sorry for the delay, but this is for Ash, who asked me about the method that I do to make my rosettes. My rosettes are a little bit, I'd say, unusual, different than most classical and flamenco rosettes, and my mode of making them is different as well. Um, I'll just flip the camera and show you what I do. Okay, so as you can see, one thing about this method, do I have enough light here? Is that it's a great method for doing rosettes if you're okay with each one being unique, which is my preference, which is, I guess, why I do them this way. If your desire, I suppose you could put it, is to create a rosette that's kind of almost like a brand image. Brand, that's not the right word, but an indication of who made it. These probably won't work because it'd be very difficult to replicate each one, because I do each one at a time, and it can take anywhere from 2 days up to 4 or 5 sometimes, depending. So each one is a little piece of work of art on their own. So just keep that in mind. And basically, what I do is I made a form out of 2 cutting boards. And as you can see, I build the rosette within the form and then pop it out. Okay, hang on a sec. I'm gonna take the screws off and show you the inside. Hard to do this. I only have 2 hands, like most people. That's the idea, though. So that, and then I've got 2 pieces. I've cut out the rosette on this one cutting board and cut out the shape that I want, the size, etc. And if you do different, I just do the same one. I just make them the same size so far. But you could certainly make more than one, and for different things. And what I do is this is some, what do you call it, silicone paper, kind of like modern wax paper. So I put a layer here so that when I build the rosette, it doesn't stick, right? Because I'm doing different ways of gluing the pieces in. Let me just be back with you in a sec here. So basically what I would do on making a new one is I would open it up like I just did, put a layer of that silicone paper down, screw it back in, boom, boom, boom. Oop, running out of juice here. Okay, hang on a sec. Okay, we're back in business. Oops, zoom, Yep, so you can do it. If you don't have, just use a screwdriver, it's fine. Okay, so from here, what I do is, say on a rosette like this, I really love these long swoopy lines. So basically what I do is I take pieces of veneer and, it's hard to, I need more hands. Anyway, basically, quite often I'll have a center, right? Like on this one I have a center. But not always. Sometimes I do asymmetrical stuff. It's really up to your imagination. And for me, it's a great thing just to start and see what happens. I mean, I'll often start with a plan of different woods and stuff. I only use woods in the natural color so far, so I'm not using dyed woods. But like, for instance, I'll just take a piece of this strip of veneer and place it in, and what I'll do is I'll just layer them in. Sometimes I use pieces of wood. I'll take pieces of wood and place them, like, where's a good example of that? Like here, do you see this wood here? This sort of brown and black spotty stuff? That's coconut, like chunks of coconut wood in there. And then, so quite often I'll make these lines and build them together. Sometimes I'll build them and glue them with some like white glue, or I'll build it up and then saturate it with some thin viscosity CA glue, and that, of course, that's why we've got the silicone paper down there to keep it from sticking, and then quite often, like, let's see, what's a good example? Yeah, you can see it here. See these bits here? I'll put pieces of veneer vertically. So I'm using them on its side and then vertically. You know what I mean? And I'll just build up a form. And that can be a bit more mosaic-like. Sometimes I'll use really fairly wide pieces, but you could make them as small as you want, Like really they could just be like tiny dots. Here's a good example of smaller dots just thrown in. And generally speaking, you can kind of, let's see, is this a good one? You can see the light through them, right? So, hang on. So I find that it's impossible to make it completely dense and cohesive with no light coming through. So then what I do is I will take the rosettes and when I make them here, they're too thick, right? Too thick. So I build them to a certain thickness, and that's great because it gives it something solid to play against, right? And then I'll scrape it down or sand it down and stuff, and then put it into the opening, cut the channel in the guitar top, glue that in, and then bring it down. I'll glue it in a little bit proud of the top, of course, and then just bring that down level. Sometimes when it's in the mold, I'll fill it. I'll fill whatever holes I can see with different stuff, like pieces of veneer vertically, maybe even put a bit of CA glue and then sand it. You know how you can do that a bit if you've got a slight opening of I do all my bindings, cut them by hand, so there's always sometimes little tiny openings. So I'll just take some CA glue, sand it, and let that fill in, But the problem with that is you end up with that kind of uniform, non-woody, well, anyway, whatever works for you. The best thing is to experiment and play, right? I think. And yeah, super fun. I mean, I love doing them. I haven't made any in about a while. So what I do is I make a whole bunch at one time. And yeah. And because a lot of my work is instrument making and other artwork is kind of like a dialogue with the natural world for me, right? It's really important all my life and in my work, and this is kind of an expression of that. So for me, even though there's the art of making the guitar, and for sure that on my headstock, let's see now. Like on my headstock, I have a certain, can you see that at all? I have a certain pattern that I always do on my headstock that's kind of inspired by some shapes that I've seen here in Thailand and temples and stuff. And it's hard, that kind of stuff just gets in you, right? You live in the place and certain shapes. And it was a friend that said, oh, that looks a lot like Thai influence, And oh yeah, right, that's what it is. Anyway, so that's kind of how I do it. It's pretty simple. And then when you're done, I just unscrew it and carefully pop it out because there might be a bit. So what happens is when you flood the CA glue, perhaps you end up with it, kind of gripping the edge here, even though it's very light. So you just kind of ease it off gently, and sometimes it doesn't take. Here's the most extreme example I've got of a couple of chunks out of there, right? So you could just put it in there and redo it, but to be honest, what I normally do is, well, I'm not sure what I'll do with this one anyway when I use it, but often what I'll do is I'll put it in the guitar and then build the rosette in the channel of the guitar, right? If needs be, and quite often, yeah, okay, so then it's in there. It's not super even always. It's like there's like kind of like a pour fill I have to do, right? So I'll do a pour fill on the rosette sometimes, and couple different methods of doing that, right? You could if you're doing French polish, you could do a French polish with some of that pumice stone, like you can do it that way. Or sometimes I have this synthetic pour filler, or you could use, whatever you're using, right? for your pour fill. And again, for little holes, sometimes I'll flood it with a bit of CA and get the sandpaper going. Just fill those little gaps up. If it's little holes, that's fine. And try to get as perfectly smooth a surface as I can. And it's not always perfect. I don't know. But anyway, it doesn't matter. It's really beautiful, I think. And yeah, so it's actually, I don't know if I'd say it's more work. I mean, the advantage, depending on how you do your other rosettes, which I actually don't have much experience with the more traditional type, but I know you can make them and then have a whole bunch all the same, right? Or you can do each one individually on the guitar too. Anyway, just another way, right? And I like it. And again, I like it because it's showing, it's just this little bit of a piece of individual artwork of the guitar and makes it unique. And I think because of the style of it, like I don't really see rosettes like this elsewhere. I mean, I'm sure someone's doing it, but I don't know, right? So for me, it's an indication of oh, that must be one of Catherine's guitars. Look at the rosette. Anyway, feel free to make your own, and I guess that's okay. Yeah, it reminds me a bit of Grit Laskin. Anyway, I don't want to go too highfalutin, but Grit Laskin might have been the first person to put that bevel on the arm, on the lower bout, where your arm sits, a black bevel. Like one of my first really great guitars when I used to play a lot was a Grit Laskin flamenco. And, geez, that was a long time ago. It was in the days when a Grit Laskin guitar was $3,000. Now they're like $30 or something. Anyway. Yeah, and he said, yeah, I'm starting to see this other places, and, he didn't seem bothered by it, even though he was possibly the inventor. Anyway, hope that helps a bit. It seems like enough information for me, but if it's not, be sure to let me know, ask questions. I'm more than happy to answer any questions, and yeah, it's kind of nice to look at these again. Yeah, this one's I had a commission for a guitar earlier in the year, and I made a bunch of rosettes for him. Yeah, this one, some of them I don't like. This one I don't really like that much. Anyway, so that's a pain too. You work on them for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 days, and then go, ugh, don't like it. Off it goes. That's life, I guess. Anyway, let me know if you need any more questions. Sorry it's so casual, but it's the way I do it. Okay, ciao, and see you on the flip side.